Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar series today. My name is Tyson Mavar. I'm an ExxonMobil focused advisor and retirement specialist here with the Retirement Group in Texas. And on today's webinar series, we're going to focus on some of the most important ExxonMobil retirement process considerations. Many of you know the Retirement Group has worked with ExxonMobil employees and assisting them transition from the company and manage retirement assets for close to 30 years. Of course, we're not affiliated with ExxonMobil or endorsed by ExxonMobil. We happen to have retired a lot of people from ExxonMobil and have many clients throughout the country. Our goal here today is to focus on some of the issues going on right now with the pension plan interest rates, some tax ramifications of transitioning out of the company. We already have some of our clients that received somewhat of a almost like a severance package on a performance improvement plan that are already planning to leave the company by November 1st. We also have a lot of clients that are planning to voluntarily leave the company either in the fourth quarter or potentially the first quarter because of the interest rate environment and how that impacts the lump sum payout at ExxonMobil. So we'll talk about some of those issues today. I'm going to also drop some links into the chat box that are focused on some of these issues in some white papers and some videos that you can view to get a little bit more information on some of the issues that we addressed today. So for those of you who aren't as familiar with the Retirement Group, we're an independent financial planning organization. We use Charles Schwab as a custodian. So if you decide to work with an advisory group in retirement, we hope that you consider working with us. And we hope at the very least, if you get some value from these webinar exercises or the cash flow projection that we do, that you help us to grow our business by referring us to some of your coworkers before you leave ExxonMobil. We've been doing this close to 30 years now with ExxonMobil clients, and we have offices throughout the country. 5 advisors here in Texas, and I think about 30 advisors around the country. And our goal is to help work with you before you retire so that you don't make any mistakes throughout this transition process, as we've seen pretty much every mistake in the book made, whether it's on a tax perspective, whether it's from just not maximizing your benefits when you leave the company. So our goal is to hopefully help you not do any of those things and have the best retirement plan possible and minimize your risks and maximize your retirement paycheck ultimately. One thing that we do on a complimentary basis that I think everybody should have done, if not done already, is a cash flow analysis. And this is used to identify some of the big decisions that you're going to have making, like the pension plan, how to take your pension, whether it's a lump sum, one of the various annuities, or maybe a combination of the both. When to take Social Security and how to maximize Social Security. Issues on paying off debt at or before retirement, and different issues with the investments, how to recreate the paycheck once the paycheck stops at ExxonMobil with the least risk possible and the highest probability of having successful retirement plans, which means you don't outlive your assets. So those are the things that we look to do in the cash flow analysis. Let us know if you would like to have yours updated. Certainly, if you haven't ever had us do one, we encourage you to, because it's a complimentary service. Normally only takes about an hour of your time to get the numbers ran and reviewed, whether on a web meeting, a phone meeting, or an in-person meeting, whatever is most appropriate for you. So today we're going to focus on the cash flow analysis and how that pertains to the defined benefit pension plan, understanding how to maximize what you walk away with in the pension. So first, let's go over some of the basics on the ExxonMobil pension. Many of you know you have to have at least 5 years with the company or be 65 to be what they call vested in the pension plan. So that means you get some type of a pension. You could potentially still have age penalties, and you might potentially be on a terminee status, but 5 years or 65 years old is the first criteria you want to make sure that you reach to get access to these benefits. The formula for the pension is 1.6% of your final average pay times your years of service with the company and subtracting off what they call a Social Security offset. So some important considerations here. First of all is your final average pay. They take the highest 36 consecutive months in your last 10 years with the company. So basically your average highest salary, typically the salary you were receiving toward the end of your career, if you like most people. But this is important if you had some type of increase or decrease in your pay, potentially, which we've seen with some of our clients, in picking a good time to retire and maximize this pension. Now, you also have the Social Security offset, which the company is essentially taking back what they've paid into Social Security throughout your career on the back end through your pension. And sometimes they do this incorrectly. They use a formula that oftentimes is not accurate. And in some cases, you might want to rectify this and turn in your Social Security statement to prove to them that they owe you more money in your pension. Now, you don't always want to try to rectify this because this could also possibly reduce your pension payout. So we at the Retirement Group are here to help you with this evaluation to make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck on this pension and that the company is giving you what you have earned. Now, you also could have some age penalties. Age penalties normally for a retiree go away at age 60. And if you don't retire as a retiree, if you leave as what's called a terminee, which is not making 55 years of age with 15 years of service, the age penalties are going to change a little bit. And we'll talk about how that works in just a moment for those of you that haven't yet made that criteria. But for the most part, it's 5% a year for every year that you take your pension before the age of 60. So here's the age penalties for a retiree on the left, and we have age penalties for somebody who goes out on a disability situation on the right, where they'll allow you to get your pension a little bit earlier, unfortunately with a bigger discount. But most people we see fall into this category here, where they leave sometime at or after age 55. And now the question is, do we take our pension immediately, or do we wait to take the pension to get some growth, as you can see here, through the age penalties and potentially some growth through the interest rates if you're taking any portion of your pension as a lump sum. Timing is everything with this, and this is something that we want to help you with as well, to understand the benefits of leaving your pension alone and in the company, and also the costs. We look at a cost benefit analysis of not having that money earn interest for you if you were to take the pension immediately, for instance. And that's what we identify in the cash flow analysis. Here's the age penalty schedule for a terminee, somebody who left before age 55 or before having 15 years of service, or both. And you can see a 55-year-old, whereas they were getting 75% of their pension in the retiree schedule, they're only getting 62% of the pension on the terminee schedule. Now, the good news is you can wait to take your pension, and this might be an even bigger incentive to do that if you don't leave as a retiree, if you were to leave as a terminee, for instance, because the growth rate is pretty significant. But we can model this and figure out what growth rate you would need outside of the pension, and it's going to be your decision on whether or not you think that's worth taking the risk on, because this is effectively guaranteed by the full faith and credit of ExxonMobil. Now, how to take the pension is probably the biggest and most difficult decision for a lot of people we work with on, because there's quite a few options. And just a few years ago, they allowed for both a partial lump sum and partial annuity option. So it's even more complicated now. But in putting some time into this decision, I think you're going to have confidence that you're making the right decision, whatever that is for you and your family. But it's different for everybody. Lump sum is appropriate for some, and it's very attractive right now with low interest rates, but it's not right for everybody. And this is another really important reason to run a cash flow analysis, so you compare different pension options. And in discussing with somebody that works with a lot of people in this, you can start to identify what merits of all of these different options are important to you. That way you don't feel like you're making a decision that you end up regretting one day, because it is an irrevocable decision. But of course, we have the lump sum, where you take all of your pension money out at once. You can do a rollover to a traditional IRA and defer taxes on that money until you actually withdraw it from your IRA. You can even move the lump sum into the Voya plan, the 401k at ExxonMobil. But there's a lot of reasons that you might consider the IRA over the 401k that we talk about when we do that cash flow analysis. Now, on the annuity side, you have a single life annuity where it's a paycheck for the rest of your life, and once you pass away, the paychecks stop. Joint and survivor option, paycheck for your life and the life of somebody else, normally a spouse, but doesn't necessarily have to be. Period certain option, which is just like the single life annuity, where you get a paycheck for the rest of your life, but it's a little bit smaller than the single life annuity, because there's some additional insurance added on if you were to pass away within a certain period of time, 10, 15, or 20 years. They will have a death benefit paid to your beneficiary at that time. So again, as you can see, there's merits to all of these options, but we talk about the pros and cons of each one in the cash flow analysis, so you can have some confidence that even with an uncertain life expectancy, uncertainty on what your returns on your investments will be, that you're picking the best option for you and your family with the highest degree of certainty once you make that decision. And then partial lump sum, if you retire as a retiree, you get 55 years of age and at least 15 years of service, you get this lump sum option, and you can take part of your pension as a lump sum and part as an annuity. So you could take a 75% lump sum with 25% annuity, maybe vice versa, 25% lump sum with 75% annuity, or half and half. And there's a variety of reasons you might consider the what I call the hybrid option, or the partial lump sum with partial annuity, to have the merits of both the flexibility of the lump sum and the ability to invest and grow to fight inflation, but also the merits of the annuity, which is a lifetime payment based on the full faith credit of ExxonMobil. Both have their merits, and it's important to talk about them several times and revisit this periodically as you get closer to your retirement date. Now, the company also differentiates employees based on whether or not you're grandfathered. So let's talk about the differences and how you qualify for a grandfathered pension formula. So the easiest way to remember it is if you are at least 63 years old with at least 23 years of service by the end of this year, by the end of 2020, you are grandfathered. And you'll always be grandfathered, even if you keep working a few more years. So the benefit of this is that they use a lower interest rate that's based on the 30-year Treasury bond, and they change that interest rate quarterly. Many of you have probably heard that interest rates are at record lows. They were for the third quarter of 2020, and they're going down even further for the fourth quarter of 2020. Now, it's different whether you're grandfathered or not, so we'll talk about the non-grandfathered employees in a moment, but for grandfathered employees, the interest rate is going from 1.75% in the third quarter to 1.25% in the fourth quarter, which means if you retire and take your lump sum anywhere from October 1st through January 1st of next year as a grandfathered employee, you'll be taking a lump sum in the most favorable environment in the history of ExxonMobil paying pension plans. So very attractive, not for everybody, of course. And turns out we don't know yet what the first quarter interest rates will be. So we don't know if they're going to go down further, if they're going to stay the same, or if they're going to go up, and if our people are going to start seeing their lump sums go down. We should know this around October 17th timeframe, and we'll be able to educate people on whether it makes sense to keep working, to retire and take your lump sum. But there's a lot of factors there. There's a lot of reasons you might consider continuing to work other than just the pension plan. So we have to do a cost benefit analysis with all of the different reasons that you might stay compared to the reasons that you might go. And again, it just goes back to that cash flow analysis and running a comparison on different retirement dates. So let us know if you'd like us to run some different scenarios for you to help you with this timing decision. The other neat thing about being grandfathered is that you can get the fourth quarter interest rate by retiring on December 31st and get your vacation pay for the next year by having your benefit commencement date be January 1st. Now, this is only available for grandfathered employees because the non-grandfathered employees, you have to have your commencement date be the first day of the month, meaning that the latest you could retire is November 30th to have a December 1st benefit commencement date in order to enjoy the fourth quarter interest rates, which again are the lowest in company history, could be producing some of the highest lump sums we've ever seen. And this is definitely something you want to be considering if you're anywhere within the next 2 years of retiring anyway, to make sure that you're maximizing your retirement assets and therefore your retirement income and not leaving any money on the table. So for the non-grandfathered folks, they look at things a little bit differently. Grandfathered employees, they look at the interest rates of the fourth, fifth, and sixth month prior to the quarter you're commencing your benefit. So in other words, they look 2 quarters into the past to effectively get the current interest rates for current retirees. On the non-grandfathered employees, not only do they use different interest rates, they use corporate bond interest rates, which we can see here on the IRS website. Those are updated monthly, usually in the middle of the month. So for instance, we updated our lump sum interest rate white paper last week, in the middle of July, when they came out with the June interest rates. For non-grandfathered employees, instead of using the 4th, 5th, and 6th month prior to the quarter you're commencing your benefit, they use the 4th and 5th month prior. So there's only 2 months of data that we use. And for the 4th quarter retirees, they'll be using the June and the May corporate bond interest rates to calculate your lump sum. And they do a blend of all 6 of these rates. And unfortunately, these rates are a little bit higher than the grandfathered interest rates, as you can see with the 1.25% grandfathered interest rate. And they are a little bit different because they don't incorporate the April interest rates, whereas the Treasury or grandfathered interest rates do. So a little more complicated calculation, but the important thing to remember is that they will use, instead of June and May, they will use the August and September interest rates to calculate the 1st quarter non-grandfathered employees' lump sums. And like I mentioned earlier, we won't know that until about mid-October. So those of you that are close, that's when you can hopefully run a projection and decide, is it better to retire in the 4th quarter and take your lump sum, or should I maybe either consider working into the 1st quarter or still retire now, but just wait until the 1st quarter to take my lump sum because we can anticipate it going up on the lump sum payout. Now, like we mentioned earlier, low interest rates are good for lump sums. They have to pay you a higher lump sum when we're in a lower interest rate environment. However, rising interest rates will start to deplete your lump sum. And the relationship we remember is about for every 1% increased interest rates, you can expect roughly a 10% drop in your lump sum. Now, this depends on your age when you're taking the lump sum, but it's important to know that we have a look back period which we can predict where the future of our lump sum is going based on knowing where the previous interest rates have been. And so pay close attention to this. I'm going to drop in the chat box our link to our retirement blog for the retirement group. And this has an updated paper that goes into detail on how they calculate these interest rates. And we update this quarterly so that people can understand what's happening to the lump sum, what happened to interest rates, and ultimately pick a good time to retire as well as a good time to take your pension lump sum. Now, what's happened in the past? We like to look at the past, even though it's not indicative necessarily of the future, just to see what has happened, and this could potentially happen in the future. What we look at here is different periods of rising interest rates. And even though interest rates for the most part have been falling for the last over 30 years, there are instances where we see interest rates spike from time to time. Back in 1983, we saw interest rates go up 2%, over 2% in a 14-month period. Another instance of this was in the mid-90s, we saw interest rates go up 2% in 13 months. So this just goes to show how important it is to pay attention to the interest rates, because if you're not retiring now, and maybe you're retiring in 2 years, it's very possible that interest rates could go up 2% and you could potentially lose 20% on your lump sum. So this is why it's critical to update your plan periodically, and we encourage people to do it at least annually. Revisit where the interest rates are, what your cash flow looks like in retirement, the current tax rate environment, look at the NUA strategy and consider that on your ExxonMobil stock at least once a year. But the more often you do it, the more likely you are to make the best decisions possible to ultimately not have some regret on some of these decisions that you have to make on when to retire and how to do it. That's all we had to talk about today. If you'd like to schedule a call with one of our ExxonMobil focused advisors, or get any updates on our ebook library, our retirement blog, or access these on-demand webinars that we go through weekly and try to update the website with, but we have a whole library of webinars that we've done over the years, give us a call at the home office. Our number is 800-900-5867. Ask to speak with a ExxonMobil focused advisor, and we'll be happy to get you in touch with somebody for either a 15-minute consultation or maybe a more detailed analysis where we can give you our best opinion on the different decisions that you have to make coming up as you approach your retirement from ExxonMobil. I'm going to drop one more link into the chat box before we wrap it up here, and this is the ExxonMobil retirement planning page where you can download content, view on-demand webinars, and sign up for some of these live webinars that we have going on normally on a weekly basis specific to the ExxonMobil benefits plans. With that, I'm going to wrap it up for this week, folks. Everybody have a wonderful and safe rest of your week, and we hope to talk to you very soon. Thanks again.